first thing we're going to talk about is function. What is a function? Well, a function is a combination of operations which you can do on any arbitrary variable. So we take some variable, we'll call it x. This can be any number, and we apply a function to it. So what we do is we put f on the outside, and x is like an input. So f of x, a function of x, a function in variable x. And it is a combination of operations. For example, we take x, we can, multiply it by 2, we can divide by 3, we can square, we can add things, and it's a combination of all these things that gives us a function. And this can be a simple function. It can literally just be f of x equals x. That's a function. All we're doing is taking x and doing nothing to it. We can call that an identity function, and that's fine. Or it can be something a lot more extravagant with all sorts of different indices and roots and all sorts. The next thing I want to talk about is what is a domain. So a domain, in terms of functions, is a set, but it's not just any set. It's a set such that all input values of any function f are in this set. So the set of input values for a function. So the domain for any function is different. It doesn't have to just be the same domain every single time. For example, when we take the square root function, x can't be negative, can it? So in this situation, we say that the domain is, well, it's the non-negative. So domain contain, and that's all a domain really is. It's it's the set of all x that you can actually put into the function. The next thing we're going to talk about is a codomain. You can probably work out what the codomain is since it contains the word domain. The codomain is in fact the set of output values of a function. So, for example, when we take the function f of x equals x squared, for example, any number squared cannot be negative. So we get the same as in this example, because if you remember, the graph x squared is like that, and you never get anything negative. It's always positive. So the codomain of x squared is the set of all non-negatives again. But you can have other things. You can have minus x squared, and that looks like that. And the codomain is any non-positive number. So it works kind of like that. And finally, we're going to introduce the notion of a map. A map is basically just a fancy word for a function, but it combines the function with the domain and the codomain. So a map, we write it like f, and it goes from the domain A to the codomain B, and we can define it in, well, any way we want. And that's all a map is. We say that the input values, so inputs in A, outputs in B, defined by F. And that's all a map is. A map, it's called a map because it maps elements from one set to another. So all the elements in A map to the elements in B.